they'll be in formats, different formats to reach across the state and all its diverse populations. And they really sit under two different umbrellas. So there's the localized, more instructional materials that will be deployed at the local level by local governments, other service providers. And these will be things that are maybe a little more utilitarian, things like mailers and signage, cart tags, that sort of thing. And then on the right side, you see the statewide motivational campaign. So that's really, again, where we're focused today. And this is a bit higher level messaging. It's really about driving action. And we're thinking more about formats in that, like advertising, social media, earned media. And you can see across both sides, there are digital and non-digital options so that there'll be other formats that the information will be provided in beyond the internet. This is not an exhaustive list of samples of the materials that are going to be created, just to give you an idea of how the campaign will be deployed. And again, so we're going to spend the rest of the webinar today really talking about campaign development. And it has many, many steps. There's been many steps that have been completed before, and that will be completed after. So this next slide gives a great overview of those steps. And throughout, the advisory board has been consulted in this process. So all the items that are in gray boxes are things that have been completed. The needs assessment, consultation sessions, program plan review. Today we'll be focusing on audience research, creative strategy, and creative concept. And we're at the interest holder engagement phase. So from here, we'll develop campaign materials. We'll launch the campaign, then we'll start to target really specific recycling behaviors. And this will be a sustained and continual campaign with ongoing messaging, testing, and expansion into the future. And now I'll hand it over to my colleague, Wendy, to talk about the audience research.
Hey everyone, I'm Wendy Artman with GFM CenterTable in Colorado. So our research was focused to really build on the existing recycling programs across the state and coordinating with statewide education efforts and collaborating with advisory boards and partners just to make sure that our outreach is going to be really impactful. So through a multi-phase approach, we collected baseline data to give us that clear picture of self-reported attitudes and behaviors from our audiences. And this will really help us evaluate the program and will help give us, direction with the campaign strategy. So we also needed to know what's standing in the way of participation, right? So what are the barriers? And we learned what the knowledge gaps are and what's causing issues with regards to like contamination or just an overall lack of participation. So this phase of the work really helped map out the campaign, helping us identify the right audiences, the best messaging approaches, and then to deliver the methods that will really drive results across the state. So we're going to dive a little more into that multi-phase approach now. So we started by really jumping into some of the publicly available resources that were available to us. So the data, reports, campaigns, existing education and materials from either NGOs or local governments, and a lot of you folks who are on this call. So the goal was to really understand what's already out there. So we want to build on it and not duplicate any of those efforts. And we also conducted a statewide survey that combined storytelling and data-driven insights. We had over 1,000 residents complete that survey across the state of Colorado, and it represented a really great diverse group of residents from geographies and demographics. And the survey was also offered in both English and Spanish, just to ensure that we were being inclusive in our outreach. And then all of this research really helped us uncover some clear patterns and insights that you're going to learn more about. But this really allowed us to create those audience personas that we need for two key audiences. So for recyclers and non-recyclers. And these personas really will guide us as we're crafting our campaign messaging and our outreach to really make sure we're resonating with those audiences. I think I'm going to be passing it off now back to Emily.
I'll be picking it up, actually.
Oh, sorry.
No worries, Wendy.
I was going to say, nope, it's Francesca. Yeah.
So lots of research was conducted, as you can see, very extensive, collected a lot of great data that are going to provide a foundation for this campaign and guide all the strategy. But we provided here kind of what were the top findings. So there are 4 on this slide, there are 3 on the next. And these really were what guided us in the initial strategy and the creative development you'll see today. So one thing that came through very strongly is the state pride aspect. Coloradans have a lot of pride and in the natural beauty of the state and the environmental values that it has, and that across audiences motivates action. So this really pointed us to use that as a positive unifying theme for this campaign. So you'll see that come through. A no-cost service, so free recycling, not too surprising, is well liked. But there are some lingering concerns about potential hidden costs. So providing some clear assurances or explanations of how that service is going to be provided for free to residents is important. We saw that service use and access are tied. So not too surprising either. The more we expand access, the more participation there will be. And so that's going to be really key to increasing capture of material, increasing the number of people participating in the system. And trust in the system. So while most people believe recycling is worthwhile, there's a lack of knowledge about the outcomes. People don't have a good sense about what happens to material after it's collected. So providing more transparency about material processing would be welcomed, and that would help build trust. And so we want to highlight this benefit prominently with the new program. We also saw that even with those highly engaged recyclers, people who are doing it all the time, very passionate about it, they're still making some common mistakes. So there's some undesirable recycling behaviors happening, things that a lot of folks in the industry will be familiar with, wish cycling, so putting things in that people think aren't sure are recyclable because they hope it will be sorted out in the end, bagging recyclables, putting things in that aren't empty and dry. We're seeing this. And so those will be some priority behaviors, and we dug in on those. And so we'll be including those in future campaign work. We also saw there's some risk of greater contamination as there's changes and the guidelines are rolled out. We have some deep information on what particular items may cause confusion. And so that was another learning. Overall, though, this program and this new system is really going to address long-standing barriers to participation by making it free, making it accessible, and making it a lot simpler for people to participate in. And this slide is lifted direct from our report, but we show it because this data point was just so strong and it was really helpful in helping us understand our audience. Most people, 79% in Colorado, believe recycling makes a difference. And on the right side, you can see the reasons why they believe this, along with some verbatim quotes from the research. So in that belief of making a difference, that the environmental benefits come through, the proof of seeing recycled materials gives good evidence that it works. And then just the belief that every little bit counts, that there's incremental benefits for everyone who participates in all the material that's diverted from landfill. And we did see there's a 7% that don't think it makes a difference. And there's the themes we saw were skepticism, a belief that all the material, garbage, and recycling ends up in the same place. Maybe feeling like people's individual contribution can't make a big difference. And then also worry about the energy consumption of the system, being unsure about whether all the energy the system uses outweighs just creating materials from scratch. And so when we're thinking about this campaign and the structure, you'll see the strategy here in a moment, but we really wanted to make sure this campaign was broad enough to address Coloradans as a whole. And so we really dug in for this awareness campaign to think about what are the commonalities across all the audiences we heard from. And the things that came through, there's a strong belief that recycling is the right thing to do. There's a strong motivator to preserve the state's beauty and reduce waste. And there is a barrier that was common amongst personas, and that was this skepticism about the system, some doubts about whether it really makes a difference. And so in this campaign, we're really talking to Coloradans who want to do the right thing and want to feel their efforts are impactful and worth it. So I will now hand it over to my colleague, Julie.
Hi, everyone. Julie Kohlauer with C+C, and I'm going to do the setup, before we show you the campaign concept in just a second. So you can go to the next slide. And we'll start with sharing sort of the brand overlay for this campaign. So Recycle On Colorado will be sort of the rallying cry and the brand overlay for the campaign overall. This was a brand that we created for CAA last year, and it's intended to be a brand that can work across multiple states that are launching EPR programs. This brand was created by doing a lot of research with audiences, with interest holders, with folks in the industry. And we looked for a brand that would sort of deliver a broad umbrella that we could have above various campaigns in various states with different needs for EPR. The brand needed to be legally protectable. The brand needed to be straightforward and have broad audience appeal. It needed to be able to transcreate into Spanish, and you see that here on the slide. So we're excited to launch this in Colorado, but the idea here is that this will be a great umbrella that can overlay both the awareness campaign that we're going to show you today, as well as future behavior campaigns, behavior change campaigns in Colorado. Go to the next slide. So in terms of kind of the DNA of the Recycle On Colorado brand platform, we always like to think about things in terms of the brand vision, which is kind of that long-term aspiration, the brand mission, which is the exactly what the brand does, the purpose, which is the why the brand is here, and then ultimately the promise, which is what does this brand deliver for the people in Colorado. So for Recycle On, our vision is a Colorado that has a recycling system that people believe in, they trust it, and they participate in it. The mission for Recycle On Colorado is really to, support the EPR policy, but to build and maintain a statewide recycling system that removes barriers and ensures shared accountability, enabling residents, businesses, and brands to create lasting environmental and economic impact through recycling. So a lot of words, but you get the sense of the mission is really what the brand does. The purpose is really to, make recycling simple, transparent for all, free, easy, accessible, and accountable to everyone in the state. So that's all the things that the EPR policy is trying to do. And then lastly, the promise. So what does the brand deliver to our priority audiences? It delivers a recycling system that brings Colorado together to make recycling work. And that promise you'll see pull through the campaign. Go to the next slide. All right, so this actually is very related to what Rachel was talking about earlier about this not being a switch, but being a dial. Here is a literal dial that illustrates how consumers move through the process of making a change for a behavior. And the key thing I want folks to take away today on this is that at our first launching of this campaign, we're going to be working in the awareness and understanding phases of the phases needed to get a consumer to change their behavior. And in this part of this wheel, so it's the little orange and that pink color there, the desire here is to get people to realize that change is coming, to be excited about that change and be ready to change their behaviors when we get to the point where we're going to ask them to do so. So the campaign you're going to see here really is going to work in that awareness and understanding part of the wheel. And this is what will be launched first next year. Over time, though, we know that our audiences are going to have to change their behaviors as well. They're going to have to start participating in recycling. They're going to have to change certain behaviors that drive contamination. And so when you get down to the green, the relevance, and then the light blue there, the behavior change parts of this continuum, that's when we will be going to market with campaigns that talk about those specific behavior changes and asks. So if we've done a good job on awareness and setting the stage, when we get to relevance and behavior change, people are going to be ready to change their behaviors and motivated to do so. So this is part of the continuum. Then from sort of an infrastructure standpoint, when someone tries and changes their behavior, it's really important that they have a good experience, right? So they're satisfied, it works, they feel good about it. If you have that satisfaction, then you form the habit with the consumer, and that consumer will continue to repeat that behavior. And then a satisfied consumer can become a loyal consumer or priority audience, and repeat that behavior and hopefully also influence their peers. And then the wheel sort of spins in terms of what happens. But for today, we are focused on awareness and understanding. Go to the next slide. All right, so our goal and objectives for the campaign you're going to see. So the goal is really to introduce Recycle On Colorado and position it as, hey, this is that new trusted face of recycling in Colorado. Things are changing, they're changing for the better, and sort of building that trust with the consumer. The objective then is to create that awareness and then ultimately drive people to the website where they can learn more details. So the campaign's call to action is that driving folks to the website to learn more about how the recycling system is changing. Next slide. All right, so the creative strategy for this campaign you're going to see, our audience that we are speaking to. So when you're looking at these concepts, try to put on your audience hat and pretend you're the audience for this campaign, because all of you are too smart about recycling. So the audience, having that audience perspective is always a good idea. The audience is Coloradans who want to do the right thing and also want to feel that their efforts are impactful and worth it. So we're going to establish that. What are they thinking now? As Francesca mentioned earlier, there is a segment of folks that really are questioning whether recycling is working. It's whether it's should be trusted. So we want to overcome that and get folks on board and excited about the opportunity with the changes that are going to occur. And so at the end of the day, we want them to know a new system is coming. We want them to trust it and know that their efforts are going to count for making things better. Next slide. All right, so that all boils down to a main message that you're going to see pull through when we share the concepts with you here. So Recycle On Colorado is building a new recycling system that Coloradans can count on. And then supporting messages, you're going to see in here, so the campaign is obviously at the conceptual stage at this point, but you're going to see a pull through of how it can extend to a whole bunch of different messages, both for the awareness campaign and in the future for behavior change campaigns. But supporting messages that really pulled through in the research as being good ones to point out is, of course, free, as Francesca mentioned. So free to residents and funded by brands. That we are expanding recycling service to more people across the state, so access to everybody. Clear guidance and more confidence that the materials that you are recycling are actually being recycled. And then lastly, that key nugget that came out of the research about the state's natural beauty and people really linking recycling to that protection of the state's natural beauty. And you'll see that come through very strong in the campaign. Next slide. Okay, so things to keep in mind, and then excited to turn it over to the creative team here to share things with you. So I'm not sure if everyone on this webinar has ever seen a creative concept presentation before, but I wanted to set the stage to just say these are going to look kind of final, what you see, but they're not final. We are definitely in the conceptual stage where we're still putting things together, fine-tuning, working through. So know that this is an input process, and while all our design abilities today allow us to put concepts together that look very final, these are not final, and we're in that development stage. But a creative concept is really that unifying theme, tone, or style that we want to have come through. And the idea here is we want to capture our priority audience's attention, sort of have emotional response to the audience so they are willing to look up more information, go to the website, learn more, be receptive to what we're talking about. And when you're thinking about it, we have a matter of seconds to catch someone's attention, literally seconds. So if you think about yourself as a consumer of information, if something doesn't catch your attention in, maybe 2 to 5 seconds, you're probably not going to pay attention to it. So we need something that has a tug with the audience where we get that emotional connection so they will continue to look at our information. So you'll see in these concepts that, that's what we're trying to achieve. Go to the next slide. All right, so as you're looking at these, the things we want you to keep in mind is, do these concepts effectively deliver on our main message? And to remind you, the main message is Recycle On Colorado is building a new recycling system Coloradans can count on. Is there anything that's clear confusing, that doesn't make sense to you? Is there anything that's missing? So what we want is like thematic feedback. So be thinking about those sorts of things as you're looking at this work. So now I think I get to turn it over to the creative team for the fun part. So we've got Wyatt, Ben, and Melinda here on the call today, and they're going to tag team this and walk you through the creative concepts. So we're excited to share these with you.
Thank you, Julie. Yeah, really excited to share this with y'all. So yeah, I'm Wyatt Curtis, Group Creative Director at C+C. Creative campaigns development, it's a team sport. So I'll be joined by Ben Salas, who's a creative director at C+C as well. I have more of a writing background. He has more of an art background, so he'll give us some of the insights there. Then also joined by Melinda from our multicultural team. Obviously, as we are developing this, we're thinking ahead about how this will work in Spanish and potentially other languages as well. So have her jump in and explain how those pieces are going to fit together. Let's go to the next slide here. And this campaign concept, we like to name them. The name itself isn't that important, but it's sort of the theme that's coming through in this. And the theme is things you can count on. So with this campaign, and Francesca, you can go to the next slide here. With this campaign, we really wanted to combine the familiar with the new, using the places and experiences and like general themes and things folks can count on in Colorado as a jumping off point to introduce this new recycling system and basically say, hey, Colorado is a special place. We're going to play off of that state pride. And the way the recycling is going to work here is pretty special too. We also wanted to surprise people a little bit and kind of subvert their expectations that, you know, maybe they have around the visual style and tone that they connect to recycling in the past. So instead of, you know, seeing a lot of glass bottles or stacks of newspapers or what have you, we were thinking this, you know, it's time for, this is something new and fresh, and we want to reset their understanding of what that looks like as well. So as we move forward here, we're going to show you a lot of ways that idea is going to come to life in social ads and billboards and all kinds of things. But as a nice starting point, just to kind of show how this messaging works, we've mocked up a quick little social, you can think about this in Instagram or Facebook carousel ad. It gives the chance to kind of explore a few of these messages. So, you know, for starters, meet a new recycling system as dependable as beer nerds over-explaining IPAs. And as you swipe through this, you get these supporting messages. Free service from Fort Collins to Four Corners, thanks to financial support from brands. Guidelines as clear as Hanging Lake, so you finally know what goes where. And then finally, a recycling system worthy of Colorado. See what's coming at our website. Ben, why don't you talk us through what we're doing visually here a little bit?
Awesome. Thank you. Hey, everyone. I'm Ben Salas. I'm a creative director, art director with C+C. But yeah, just to tell you a little more about the look and feel. As Wyatt mentioned, you know, we approach this campaign with a fresh perspective on what recycling can look like. Our goal is to create something big and bold, eye-catching, while staying true to the core message and maintaining a sense of charm and personality. So for the typeface, we selected a clean sans serif set in all caps. We wanted, you know, something highly legible, but also something full of character, you know, both in the font itself and the way it's kind of stacked within the layout. And then to add some visual depth, we integrated photographic elements that feel naturally embedded within each design. So each image was chosen to complement the headline, giving every layout its own unique kind of point of interest. In terms of color, we paired vibrant yet muted colors with a subtle gray gradient background to create contrast and a sense of dimension. And finally, each piece is anchored with the newly created Recycle on Colorado logo, tying the entire campaign together with a unified, ownable identity.
Cool. Thank you, Ben. And obviously, I'm so excited to show you a bunch of examples here. But before we really get cooking, I'd really like to get Melinda is in here as well. Just talk about some of the language nuance here.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So the overall messaging does feel accessible and relatable to Spanish-speaking audiences. And there's also strong potential for the campaign to translate effectively across multiple languages, not just Spanish. However, in this initial phase, we are scoped to develop Spanish language materials. Some of the specific examples shown may not fully resonate with Spanish-speaking audiences, but they can easily be adapted, replaced with more culturally relevant alternatives. So for example, like the beer nerd ad, we could write a similar line of text relating to beer or swap out the visual completely to better tailor it to the audience. But as Julie has mentioned earlier, like this is still very much like the exploration phase. So we would dive deeper into like fleshing out that option or those options more thoroughly during the actual production process. And back to
Cool.
Wyatt.
Thank you. Thank you, Melinda. So again, this is a little bit of an introduction, but we've got more to show you on the next slide here. Just a couple of examples of other, headlines or treatments for this. Finally, a recycling system that can live up to Colorado sunsets, or, playing off some other kind of cultural things in Colorado. Meet a recycling system as reliable as Pueblo chilies roasting in September. Something also to keep in mind with these is, sometimes these lines are going to have to stand alone, but in many places we'll be able to support and add a little bit of nuanced sub-messaging. So on the next slide here, just one of these, ads mocked up kind of in situ in Instagram as an example. So that Pueblo chilies line, but then again, we have that post copy as well that hits some of our key points: clear guidelines, curbside service, absolutely free, get to know Colorado's new recycling system. So again, all of this language subject to a little fine tuning, but we really love how, the boldness of this theme and the way it kind of gives us this introduction to the system. On the next slide here, just a mock-up for, imagine this, as out of home, as a billboard, or as a transit ad, something like this. Again, playing off that sunset line again, but a recycling system you'll love almost as much as Colorado sunsets. We can keep going. This next one. Thank you. Finally, a recycling system with guidelines as clear as Hanging Lake. So I think in the contrast between these last two, get a sense of like that kind of broad overarching, hey, you're going to love it feeling that came through in that first billboard. This one, digging in a little more specific to one of those key benefits, clearer guidelines to help folks out. Let's keep rolling. And so as our next exercise here, going to walk you through what a potential 30-second spot could be for this. So you could imagine this, running on TV or, OTT, or potentially, even on social. Ben, why don't you give us a little bit of a look into how this will work visually? And then after that, I'll walk y'all through the full script.
For sure. Thank you, Wyatt. So yeah, for the script, we wanted to build on our established look and feel while introducing new elements like live action video clips. So by pairing this with our bold type and dynamic transitions, we're aiming to keep the visuals engaging and energetic. A steady rhythm and pace will help keep the momentum up while keeping our audience locked in as we kind of share all the exciting things coming to recycling in Colorado. And these are just two examples of like what you might see in the video that Wyatt will take you through.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, so with this, we want to play with including that bold type along with we could do sort of full screen video behind it. We can do sort of collections of things where we do split screens and show 2, 3, or 4 things at a time, but really all about talking about the way this system is a fit for Colorado, what it's going to bring to the state, playing off those local themes, and then just really keeping the energy up and positive as we move along. So on the next slide here, there are a lot of words, but I promise I will take you through it. And I'm going to start with, on the left side here, is just a description of how the visuals will work. So I'll walk you through that. Hopefully that kind of helps you keep the vision in your head, and then I will read you through on the right side the voiceover, the actual script that people will hear as they see the spot. So we're gonna open on shots from various Colorado landscapes. We can intercut that with shots of recycling facilities or items, and then we could cut to or do a superimposed over those shots that opening line, meet your recycling system. You can actually see those words appear on screen. Then we cut quickly through different Colorado skies and landscapes, Denver skyline, mountain peaks, Great Plains, and then super over that crystal clear guidelines. Playing off of that line you saw earlier, that IPA line, we have a close-up of a beer being poured, and it says service you can count on. Francesca, you're doing great. Don't worry about the mess at all. And then we would cut and we'd see playing off of that gawking at bighorns from the highway. So we could see, the sheep themselves, could see people watching, whatever, with a super free for everyone. And then that kind of cute winky line, bighorns not included. And then as we can go through shots of green chilies being served or prepared, such an iconic Colorado thing, super talking about the geographic diversity from Fort Collins to Four Corners, before we finally end on just a nice scenic Colorado landscape, and have a super over that of the Recycle On logo and URL where folks can learn more. So again, this is going to be a really high-paced edit, lots to look at with those superimposed lines over it to really emphasize key points. And as folks are on that journey visually, we'll have a voiceover that says, Colorado, allow us to introduce you to a new recycling system. And that's where we get that Meet Your Recycling System appearing on screen. One you can count on, with guidelines as clear as skies, service as dependable as craft beer nerds over-explaining a hazy IPA, and the price free as watching bighorns from I-70. Because you deserve a recycling system as reliable as a side of green chili, and we're here to give it to you. Recycle On, Colorado. And so again, that gives you a good sense of the core of the campaign and those main elements we're thinking about as we start. But as we develop these things, we're always thinking about where they can take us, what can be added on, how we can extend this campaign in the future. And so on the next few slides here, we have some other things we've been thinking about. The first one is, these aren't written up in quite the same final way, but we can go ahead, Frank. Yeah, this is just, as we were thinking about, if we were to do additional videos, maybe shorter ones, more bite-sized things that work as YouTube pre-roll, 6 or 15-second spots, or on social, that kind of thing. And we can emphasize different points with these kind of different concise messages. So this first one, and again, we could play with the editing style, keep it in the universe we established for that first spot. But finally, a new recycling system worthy of Colorado landscape, riverscape, cityscape, all the scapes. Recycle On, Colorado. Playing off of specific events or cultural things, welcome to a new recycling system as excellent as a dozen Colorado green chili tamales. Recycle On, Colorado. This third one, just emphasizing, some of the system benefits. Figures Colorado would create an innovative recycling system funded by brands. After all, we did invent the cheeseburger, which we looked up. We can cite sources on that for you later. Recycle On, Colorado. And then just another one playing with some of those, emphasizing signups a little more. Meet a new recycling system all of Colorado can count on, from the front range to the back 40, and as free as gawking at bighorns on I-70. Sign up today. Recycle On, Colorado. Moving along. Again, just, we're writing, we're coming up with a lot of headlines. Not that any of these are perfect, but we're just thinking of other state themes and ideas we can play with. So there's some things here. I won't read you through every single one of these, but I kind of like the wink of the second one here. If this recycling system were any more Coloradan, it would call in sick on powder days. Finally, a recycling system as clear as a bluebird day. A new recycling system as Coloradan is wearing fleece year round. And finally, a recycling system as sweet as a Palisade peach. So again, there's just room to play here. And emphasize different benefits and ideas. And then, of course, it's not just about establishing that awareness. We're trying to think ahead about, what happens with this campaign when we're trying to introduce, key behavior changes. Maybe we're trying to get people to, not bag their recycling, or if we're trying, to really drive signups more specifically with ads. And so, in those instances, obviously, we want to carry through the tone and the style and the attitude that makes this campaign stand out and kind of creates that sense of consistency for folks if they see it. But obviously, we can elaborate on things a bit too in the way we approach headlines, and we can also add, calls to action to earn those clicks and move people along the pipeline. So the ingredients we have, of course, are these local, specific Colorado references. Those are great. We want to include those where they help make the point. If they ever hinder, comprehension or something, that's something we can minimize a little bit. We do absolutely want to maintain this kind of bold headline-driven style, and also just, stay in this tone. It's confident, welcoming, optimistic, a little bit playful, just building that sense of enthusiasm around recycling. So I'll show you some examples of how that could look on the next slide as well. Maybe not how it looks, but how it could sound. We haven't mocked all these up, but if we're talking about signups, again, we can stay with these very local lines and add on these calls to action. So free recycling for everyone from Fort Collins to Four Corners, get your free cart. Free recycling, that's as Coloradan as green chili. Sign up now. Recycling service that you'll love almost as much as a Colorado sunset, get your free cart. If we're getting into just general messaging around like, hey, there's guidelines that are easier to use. Again, we can do that with these kind of CTA lines. So finally, recycling guidelines as clear as hanging lake. See what's changed where folks can go learn. If we're getting into really specific actions here, that's where those references can start to feel cumbersome, and we can just again maintain that bold visual style, but with these really simple lines. Recycle like a boss, skip the bag. Recycle the Colorado way, skip the bag, or keep it loose, recyclers, skip the bag. So again, just examples of the way these themes and this feeling can carry through a campaign in the future as we dig into additional messages and areas. Let's go to the next slide here. And Melinda teased this for us a little bit at the top, but let's get into the specifics a little deeper here as well.
Yes. So when adapting messaging for Spanish speaking or any multicultural audience, really, we focus on more than translation. We transcreate the message so that we focus more on cultural and linguistic resonance. So we make sure the tone, phrasing, and emotion feel authentic while staying true to the brand voice and essentially those ingredients that Wyatt was mentioning. So we also consider regional differences. For example, within the Hispanic community, it is not a monolith. There are different countries and different just lived experiences. So we adjust expression so the message connects naturally across the diverse Spanish-speaking communities. In Colorado, where about 70% of the Hispanic community is of Mexican heritage, we'll probably prioritize language and references that feel familiar and culturally relevant to this specific audience, but still feels relevant to the broader Hispanic community within Colorado. And I also wanted to flag that for video and radio, timing is absolutely key. Because Spanish often takes longer to say when we translate, one word, it might be multiple words. We refine and condense phrasing to fit the time limits without losing meaning or emotional impact. So again, it's not, a word for word translation. This is why we consider it more of a transcreation. But our goal is to keep every ad clear, engaging, and just true to the original intent. Back to the team.
Thank you, Melinda. There you have it. That is our creative approach to this campaign, and I will let Francesca, are you going to walk us through next steps here?
I'll take that. It's Emily
Oh,
with GFM
sorry, Emily.
CenterTable. All good. And thank you, C+C creative team, for that deep dive. It was awesome. Appreciate it. And thanks to everyone else on the webinar for hanging with us. We're almost through. So next steps today, we have mentioned a follow-up survey where you can provide feedback on the concepts presented. It's now live. It'll be shared in the chat and also sent via email. So you will absolutely have that shortly. And within the survey, you'll find a link to a folder that has today's slide deck for reference. So you can go back through, kind of dig into it, spend a little more time thinking about it. We really want to hear from you. And for anyone in your organization not able to attend, but who is interested, we recommend that they watch the webinar recording before completing the survey. And a link to the webinar will also be included in the survey. It just will be uploaded shortly, but it'll be included there for people if you want to pass it on to them. And note that the deadline for responding is a week from today, Thursday, October 16th. And your feedback's really important. So please, please don't forget to fill it out. We really value your feedback, and it's an important part of this process. So thank you all. Rachel?
Thank you, guys. We are so excited and cannot wait to hear what everyone thinks. So do know, I posted in the chat the survey link to that form that Emily mentioned. So please make sure you take a look at that. We should send out an email likely tomorrow with, as Emily mentioned, the slides along with the recording, or at least most of the recording. I missed the first part, but I think that'll be okay. You got the important stuff. So please, please scan the QR code, click on the link. To clarify, this will be for feedback on that Recycle On Education and Outreach statewide campaign. And then also, if you're not yet, please sign up for the newsletter. That's how we're going to share important information, both about education and outreach and about critical program operations. So I think then we